Hello. Welcome to our final final round of the University of Bradford mock trial competition for 2023. We'll be hearing from Council Adam Ahmed and Adesola Alade for today's hearing. The hearing, and I'll just do it just by way of brief introduction. Sorry, my name's Edward Molam. I'm judge for today, lecturer in law here at the University of Bradford. So just briefly in terms of the facts of the case, just for anyone who's following along at home, hopefully this is clear. We will be hearing our defendant today is a Mr. Richard Jeremy James, who lives on a tight cul-de-sac where it's not clear if he drives, but he is walking his children to the local library where he does good community work in reading stories to young children at the local library. In order to get there, he's pushing his children along the path getting dangerously close to cars, one of which is parked on the footpath, so he pushes past that car, leaving, seemingly, some scratches in the bodywork of that car and some gouges, although whether or not he's responsible for all of the damage is unclear from the circumstances. The cars are expensive cars. The car that's damaged is a Mercedes-Benz G-Class, also known as a G-Wagon. It's a large SUV type 4x4, somebody's pride and joy. Is owned by a Miss Abishi Lancer, or Mr. Abishi Lancer, for today's hearing. So we're considering whether or not that amounts to criminal damage of that vehicle, or if there is a lawful excuse which could be used. So that's just by way of introduction. We haven't started the hearing yet. For anyone following along at home, those are some of the facts, and we'll be hearing from witnesses that saw what happened and from the defendant, Mr. Richard Jeremy James, and the mother of his wife, who was with them at the time, so is acting as a witness for the defence. We'll be starting presently. I'll hand over to the prosecution, who will introduce the case. Before then, we will swear in our defendant and witnesses, and we'll get started.
Your Honour.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Yeah.
To briefly explain the case, on the 10th of January 2023, Mr. Lancer parked his Mercedes G-Class partly on the pavement due to the size of the vehicle and safety concerns. Mr. James is accused of causing criminal damage to Mr. Lancer's Mercedes G-Wagon when trying to get past the gap in the pavement. Other witnesses also believe that Mr. James was capable of the damage. I will be acting on behalf of the prosecution. I'll be aiming to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. James is guilty of the full extent of criminal damage done to Mr. Lancer's G-Wagon. I will be referring to certain sections of the Criminal Damage Act 1971 throughout my cross-examination. To be more specific, I'll be referring to Section 1's recklessness elements. I would like to call Mr. Lancer for questioning, please.
Mr. Lancer, please. Thank you. First, however, sit down, it will be fine. But first, just want to hear from the defendant, because we need to swear you in, and confirm your name and address for the court records. So please, could you confirm your full name, please?
My name is Richard James.
Richard James,
and
thank
I live in 37 Cross Flat Row, Bradford.
Thank you, as we have it.
Yeah,
good, okay. And if you could repeat the oath after me, please. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly, declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give
the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth.
Thank you. And just to read out the charge against you, is that on the 10th of January of 2023, that you, Mr. Richard Jeremy James, did cause criminal damage to the property belonging to Miss Abishi Lancer, that is, namely, her motor vehicle, intending to destroy or damage this property, or being reckless as to whether that property would be destroyed or damaged, which is, as we've heard, contrary to Section 1, subsection 1 of the Criminal Damage Act of 1971. Do you understand the charges against you? Good. Can I ask how you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, my lord.
Thank you. Yes. Mr. Lance, thank you very much. Mr. Lancer, to you, just confirm your full name, please, and your address.
I am Mr. Obisi Lancer. I live in City Centre, BD1.
Okay, yeah, we have that address here, Bank Street, BD1. Thank you. And if you could also be sworn in, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly, declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you very much. Your witness, please, Mr. Ahmed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lancer. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, good. So your first question, could you please describe your relationship with Mr. James?
Mr. James, I've known him for a while. Not really my friend, but as a neighbor, we have understanding, hello, hi, but not in any formal relationship anymore.
So no previous dealings?
No previous
with Mr.
dealings.
James?
Just
Perfect.
a neighbor.
And you'd say that you don't have a personal vendetta against Mr. James?
Not at all.
Perfect. So how often do you park on the pavement?
Not quite often.
It's not enough to inconvenience Mr. James in any way?
No.
May I stop you, Mr. Ahmed? These are somewhat leading questions. If you could rephrase them slightly, just so we can hear the evidence from the witness, rather than being led towards whether or not there was any animosity or what have you. That should be clear from the evidence that we hear from the witness.
So how often, do you park on the pavement?
Not quite often, not all the time.
Perfect. So could you explain what condition the car was in before the incident?
My G-Wagon is pretty new, and before this incident there was little scratches on it, but not a deep scratch or gouges like after Mr. James dented my new car.
Yeah. So before the incident, am I fair in saying that it was next to new?
Yes.
And after the incident, was it next to new or completely wrecked?
I was in a condition that I'm not happy about it because there is around the passenger side 3 deep gouges.
Deep gouges, yeah?
That affected the painting of the car. Makes it not look nice anymore.
Is it fair to say that one could only do such damage to a car if they possess the intent to do so?
Can you come again?
Is it fair to say that the damage done to your car could only have been done if the defendant wanted to do the damage, so they intended to do damage to your vehicle? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I believe so, because there is no need for him to cross that side in the first place because of how the car was parked, and it was not conveniencing him in any way.
Could the damage done to your vehicle be accidental?
No, it's not accidental.
So you believe that this was done intentionally and it was not an accident?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Would you say the damage significantly reduces the value of the car?
Yes, it did, because before the incident, the car was pretty new.
Yeah.
But after this incident, with the 3 gouges on the car, it doesn't look nice again, and it has devalued the vehicle, the worth of the vehicle.
Yeah. If you had known before the incident that damage would have been a certainty, would you have consented to that damage?
No, I wouldn't.
So you would not have consented to the damage, and the damage is the last thing you wanted to happen to your vehicle?
I never wanted such damage to be done on the vehicle because of how expensive it is.
Perfect. So if you think Mr. James had gone round the G-Wagon, it could have resulted in a threat to his life or his children's life, bearing in mind that the streets are usually quiet. So what you said in your statement is the streets are usually quiet. Do you think if he went around the G-Wagon, his life or his children's lives would have been in any sort of danger?
No, I don't believe so.
Why don't you believe so?
Because the street is quiet and there is no uncertainty in the street that will warrant any fear or any danger to his life or the life of his family as at that moment.
Yeah, so the streets are usually quiet and there are no dangers at that time, yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. I have no further questioning, Your Honour.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Pardon
Miss
Your Honour, I
Aladikaba.
would like to cross-examine the witness.
Please do.
Hi, Mr. Lancer.
Hello.
Yeah. So I would just like to ask you just a few questions to establish to the courts the real facts of the case. So where do you park regularly?
Like I said before, I park sometimes in the pavement, but sometimes I'm not around. But sometimes I do park across the street as well.
Okay. On that particular day, did you park on the pavement?
Yes.
You park on the pavement. Do you also park on the double yellow lines, across the double yellow lines on the pavement, across the pavement?
No.
Okay. Do you have any license or permit or any legal document that allows you to park on the pavement?
No.
Okay. What do you believe the pedestrian way is made for? As the pavement where the pedestrians pass, what do you think it's made for?
I believe it's meant for people to pass through.
Do you believe it's meant for cars to park on?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Can
You-
you try to answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Is the pavement for cars to park on?
No.
Sorry, I don't mean to. Your questions may well sort of follow this path.
Yeah.
I'll let you continue, but
If
we'll
you
seek to get
believe
an answer to this.
if you believe that the pavement is not meant for cars to park on, why did you park on the pavement?
I parked on the pavement because all this while, like I said in my statement, I've lived there for more than 10 years. And people have been parking there, especially in the night when the street is so quiet.
Do you believe that just because people do some things, it makes it right?
No.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. You just said in your testimony that there was no need for Mr. Richards to pass that area where he passed. The place, where exactly would you have preferred him to pass?
Like in that neighborhood, there's another corner way around the house where you can easily pass through if there is need to do that.
Is that corner the main road or a pedestrian way?
It's a walking route area.
It's a walking road area because from the testimony, the car was parked on the pavement, and the only other way that he could have passed through was through the pavement or the main road. So I want to be sure where exactly could he have passed if you parked on the pavement. So the other is it right to assume that the only other place he could have passed was the main road, since you parked on the pavement where he could pass in going in this direction?
The question is so difficult because, like I said earlier, there are a lot of areas he could have passed through if he didn't mean to dent my vehicle.
What exactly are the other areas do you think he would have been able to pass through?
There are other free areas beside the car or around the corner, or like you mentioned, at the roadside, because it's quiet time in the night.
The other side of the road, that's
Yeah.
the main road.
Not the other side of the road, the other spaces. I don't know how to describe it because I'm unprofessional around the spacing and so on.
Do you mean on the road, Mr. Lanson? On the roadway itself?
No, not on the road. There's other space. I don't know if
Objection, Your Honor. The
I
car
will
was
take
only
objections.
partly.
You can bring it up in re-examination.
Yeah. Okay.
So your car
Let's
was
make some
parked on the
progress, yeah.
pavement,
Yep.
and was there space for someone to pass through, a passenger to pass through, a pedestrian?
Yes.
And is that the place where a pedestrian is supposed to pass? The pedestrian way?
Yeah,
which is the
there's a
pavement?
pedestrian route on that spot. So
Okay.
somebody could easily pass there. But if you do have carriage, it might be a little bit difficult to pass through there.
Okay. So I would like to ask how the weather was on that particular day.
Well, the morning, I don't know about the night. 'Cause I was asleep. So the morning was okay.
It was okay. Okay. Where do you drive your cars to apart from, driving into your house?
I go to work.
Mm-hmm. Where else do you drive to apart
I
from
go to
work?
shopping. I travel sometimes, and all other things I do with the car.
Okay, so when you go to work, for example, as you just stated, are there times you have to leave your car unattended because, you have to go to work?
No.
So when you go to work, you work in your car, you don't go to the office?
I go with my car to the office and
Yeah,
park it.
so when you park it, are you with the car or you're inside the office?
Yeah, I'm inside the office.
So
I'm not with
which
the
means
car.
you don't see the car when you are in the office?
Yes.
Okay, is it right to say that, the car is left unattended at that moment because you are at the office doing your work?
I don't understand the question very
Okay,
well.
you just said that when you go to work, you park your car
Yeah.
and then you go to the office.
Yeah.
So I'm asking, is it right to assume that the car is unattended so at that time because you are in your office at that moment?
I wouldn't know about that.
Okay, so where do you park your car when you drive it to the office? Is there like a parking space created for, workers that drive into the workspace?
In some places there are car parks.
The car. How would you describe the distance between the parking spaces for the cars?
Sorry, could I just ask? Mr. Ladekova, is this materially relevant to...
Yeah, this is relevant because it's going to help me establish the fact that if a car is left unattended, it could be scratched by someone else.
Okay, but not in the place where the incident occurred?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm just trying to ask you, there are times you leave your car unattended, right?
Yes.
So is it right to say that when you leave your car unattended, is there a likelihood that it could be scratched by someone else at that time?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Where exactly were you when you said Mr. Richard scratched the car?
I was in my, like I said in my statement,
Yeah.
Mr. Tete informed me of the incident that is
Mr.
happening
Tete.
outside. Yeah.
So did you actually see Mr. Richard scratch the car? Allegedly scratch the car?
No, I didn't see him, but he's notorious of doing that in the area.
Okay. Is notorious of doing that in the area. So are you saying he has scratched someone else's car?
Yeah, like Mr. Tete has confirmed that he scratched his car as well.
Did Mr. Tete tell you that he saw him scratch his car?
I didn't ask him.
Okay. Have you seen a push chair before? Used to push kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so you stated that there were large gorgs on your car. Okay, so what's your definition of a large gorgs for us to understand?
A deep dent. A deep dent in a car that leaves a remarkable mark.
So what do you believe push cars are made out of?
Push chairs.
Push chairs are made out of?
Sometimes a bit of the aluminium and some zinc rod, depending on the year of the made it. So if it's an old one, you can have iron bars around it.
So have you seen Mr. Richard's push chair before?
I have seen it from afar.
So what is it made out of?
I'm not sure. We'd expect our witness to
Okay.
know the answer to that question.
Okay, so you just stated that Mr. Tete told you he allegedly saw Mr. Richard scratch the car.
Yes.
So is that right to say? Is it right to say that you just assumed that Mr. Tete scratched the car because that Richard scratched the car because Mr. Tete told you that Richard scratched the car? Is that right to assume that you believe Richard scratched the car because Mr. Tete told you that it was Richard who scratched the car?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ahmed, would you like to explain to me what you wanted to say earlier on first?
The first question was, Mr. Lancer, were you partly parked on the pavement or were you fully parked on the pavement? Partly parked on the pavement, correct? Perfect. So would you say there's enough space for pedestrians to walk safely on the part that you're not parked on?
Yeah, they're supposed to walk safely.
Yeah. So they had enough space to walk safely and use the footpath. Perfect. No further questioning, Your Honour.
Okay, thank you. Could I just seek to establish one thing? I won't take long with you, Mr. Lancer. Thank you for your time. You said that you had no previous dealings in answer to one question, but then you said that you have known of Mr. James previously. Could we just clear that up?
Yeah, like I
What is the nature of your relationship, Mr. James?
I must say that he's a neighbor living in the area.
Okay.
So, like, he's notorious in the area.
Yes.
People, he moves around with pushchair for his kids, and the mother is in a wheelchair. So, a lot of people know him around, and
So you just know
people,
of him,
and people talk about him often because of the way he.
but you've had
behaves.
no conversation, no previous dealing with him whatsoever.
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. You are done. You're free to leave the court if you so
Thank
wish.
you.
Thank you. Would you like to call your second witness?
Prosecution calls Mr. Coupe.
Thank you. Thank you. Could you confirm your name for the court records, please, Mr. Coupe?
Yeah, Mr. Coupe, Tete,
Okay, thank you. And an address.
number 8, Halifax Street, BD7 45 AC.
Thank you very much. And if I could sway you in, you may sit down.
Oh, thanks.
Yep. Thank you. I do solemnly,
I do solemnly,
sincerely and truly
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ahmed.
So, Mr. Coupe, you said in your witness statement that people around here are tired of Mr. James's antics. What exactly did you mean by this?
Yeah, so Mr. James is quite notorious when it comes to taking pictures and scratching people's cars, doing all sorts of naughty things with cars.
And why do you think he does this?
I can't really say. Maybe he's just one of those that is not happy with fancy cars or something. I can't really say why. I don't know why, to be honest.
But why would he, of all people, not be happy with the cars?
I don't know that.
You're not sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay, yeah, carry on.
so in your witness statement, you said he clearly couldn't fit through the gap. Would you say Mr. James's actions of forcefully squeezing past the gap were unreasonable or unjustified in any way?
Yeah, so in my statement, I've already said that the space wasn't really meant for a push car. The space in between the two cars wasn't really meant for a push car. But he saw that and he knew about that, I guess, and he tried to squeeze himself through that space. So there wasn't any reason for that.
And not your average push chair, your notoriously large push chair.
Yeah, it was actually a big push chair for
Yeah.
used for twin babies and all
Yeah.
that.
So just to confirm, you think his actions were unjustifiable and unreasonable?
There was no reason for that.
There was no reason for it, yeah? So you said a part of Mr. Lancer's G-Wagon was on the pavement, correct? Only
Yes.
a part was on the pavement?
Part on the pavement and part on the road.
Yeah. So if Mr. Lancer's car was partly on the pavement, would you say that there was enough space for pedestrians to safely pass through the space that was left by Mr. Lancer?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Mr. Lancer refers to Mr. James's pushchair as notoriously large. Would you agree?
Yes, it's quite a big.
It's a lot chunkier than your average pushchair.
Of course, because it's meant for twin babies, I think.
Perfect. Yeah. No further questioning, Your Honour.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Teteku. So, you just mentioned that the pedestrian way was the pedestrian way was enough for pedestrians to pass. Okay,
Yes.
So I was want to ask you, where, for instance, in this instance where Mr. Tate is carrying a pushchair, where exactly is someone who is carrying a pushchair supposed to pass with the pushchair?
There are other safe way of navigating that space. One of which would have been to avoid the pedestrian and then use some other alternative ways which were around to be used. So yes, if one is not with a pushchair, there's enough space to navigate. But if the kind of push chair that the defendant had, it's not something that I would want to do in that instance.
So, Mr. Tete had an option of only passing that road because every other one was blocked. Mr. Richard, I mean. So where would you have wanted him to pass?
Not every other route was blocked. Like I said, on the opposite side, it was free. And I could still recall I saw a woman who just passed by using that other side. It wasn't unsafe to use the other side, on the opposite side of the road.
So you would have wanted him to cross the road to the other side? Is that what you're saying?
That's an alternative.
That's an alternative. Could you recall the weather that day? How was the weather?
Yeah, it was an icy one, not really friendly, kind of.
It was icy. Okay. Have you ever driven on the road when it was icy?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so how would you explain how the road gets when it's icy?
Treacherous, kind of. So we need to drive with care. So I usually drive with care.
So would you say it would have been safe for Mr. Richard to carry his twins in the pushchair on the road, cross over to the other side when the roads were icy? Do you believe it would have been safe to do that?
Of course, yes.
It would have been safe for him to carry his kids on the icy road to the other side?
Yes, very safe.
Oh, all right. Okay. I want to ask you, you said you saw Mr. Richards allegedly make scratches on Mr. Lancer's car. So where exactly were you at the time you said you claimed you saw him?
So I was sitting in my lounge and doing some work, actually, on my computer, trying to respond to email, trying to look what was happening around. At the same time, overlooking the opposite side where the car was parked, because I had an incident where my car had been scratched, so that made me a bit more vigilant to see what was happening from time to time around the street. And so I saw the defendant and an elderly woman on a scooter, a bit unstable around there, not trying to leave on time, trying to create a scene. And I saw the defendant, or I overheard the defendant saying some angry words, and the woman on the scooter a bit agitated. And so immediately they left. Once they left, I went very close to where the where Mr. Richard's car was parked, and I noticed that there was a huge scratch on the car, especially the paintwork was destroyed, and I knew it was the defendant that had done that. I probably must have also done the same to my car previous incident.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
can I stop you there, Mr. Coupe. That is not part of the charge. We will not speculate as to other offences.
so
in
you
this court,
just
please. Thank you.
stated that it was when you went close to the car that you said you claim you saw a scratch on the car.
Yes.
So how far were you from the car at that day when
Not
you were
very
in your
far.
house?
Not very far.
So how close was your line of sight to the car?
My line of sight is very okay.
Was it up to 10 feet distance? How far was it?
Less than 10 feet, actually. Maybe about 2, 3, 4 feet, maybe.
So what angle were you seeing the car
I'm
outside?
not very
from?
good with mathematics, so I don't know those angles, to be honest.
Okay, that's fine. You just said something that the road that you've driven on an icy road before, and you said that the roads get treacherous. So I want to ask again, because if the road is treacherous, do you think it's safe for a push car to go through?
Of course, yes, but not on that particular day. It wasn't really treacherous for pedestrians to use the main road and all that. Of course, there's a difference when you're driving and when you're actually walking on the road. So it's a bit more safer when you're walking or doing your push chair or something than when you're driving on an icy road. At least that's my experience.
Okay, so have you ever walked on an icy road?
Not very icy. Yes, I've walked on an icy road, but on this occasion, not the kind of ice that you're looking at here or you're thinking about.
Okay, but does the road get slippery when the road is icy?
Of course it got.
Okay, so it's slippery for anyone passing through the roads when it's slippery.
Very possible, even when it's not icy as well.
All right, thank you. You said that you were in your house, and then it was when you went downstairs that you saw the scratches. So did you actually see Mr. Richard allegedly scratch the car?
I saw from my window that himself, the twin baby, and the mother-in-law were just around there, and they were crowded there. And once they left, I went there and I saw those scratches.
Okay. So is it only Mr. Richard and his mother that pass that way in the neighborhood?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
To the best of your knowledge, no other. You don't have any other neighbors
within
that
that
pass
space of time.
within
yes.
that space of time. So how long were you watching outside to see what was happening?
Well, like I said, I was working from home that day, and my eyes on the road, doing what I was doing, shopping online, and so on and so forth. So yes, for a very long time, I was always looking out
1
there.
hour, 2 hours?
Probably
How long?
so.
2
Probably
hours.
so.
So after 2 hours, what? That was when you went downstairs to see.
No. Immediately they left that scene.
Immediately they left the scene, you went to
Yes,
see.
yes.
But before those hours, the night before, were you looking
No,
outside
no,
the window?
no.
Okay. So is it right to assume that there was a cat could have been scratched at the time where you were not looking?
Yeah, it's okay to assume that. We can also assume many things, that the car was not also scratched at the time. I mean, the car was also scratched at the point when he left.
That will be all, Mr. Anthony.
Re-examination, please, Mr. Anderson.
Would you also agree that Mr. Lancer did not have a duty to ensure the whole pushchair could go through, but only that people could use the footpath as intended?
I don't know. I don't know if he has a duty or not.
Okay. Was the road busy at the time of the incident?
No, it wasn't busy.
So the road was not busy?
No, it wasn't.
And not of any sort of danger at all?
No.
Do you believe, despite the icy conditions, Mr. James was capable of walking past the G-Wagon?
Yes.
Yeah. Fully capable?
Yes.
Not in any sort of danger at all?
Yes.
From what you know and have experienced of Mr. James, do you think that this was intentional?
I wouldn't say whether it was intentional of him, but I know that James, is fond of doing naughty things around cars, and
you've already told us that he's not happy with the manner of driving in the area.
Exactly, he's not happy with that, but yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah.
That
Would you say that that gave him a motive as such?
of course he's always paranoid when he sees cars
Yeah.
parked on the streets and so on and so forth. That I can say.
Yeah.
Because he takes pictures and
Okay.
put them on social medias and try to shame people and all that.
Yes. So if Mr. James had gone round the G-Wagon, would his life or children's lives be in any sort of danger? Bearing in mind you live on the same street and you've walked in those icy conditions before.
No, nothing would have happened.
No
to
danger?
No
Perfect.
danger to them.
Do you believe that Mr. James's family would have been in any sort of risk of being hit by the G-Wagon? Sorry, being hit by a car had they gone around the G-Wagon and taken presumably a couple of seconds?
There wasn't any car coming,
Yeah.
and the G-Wagon wasn't also in motion, so there was no risk.
Yeah. So just to confirm, they would have taken a couple of seconds to walk around the G-Wagon,
Yeah.
and you're saying they weren't in any danger of being
No
hit by
danger
any
at
car?
all. No.
From the time Mr. James was in the area, do you feel that any other member of the public could have done the damage?
I didn't see anyone else apart from
So you didn't see anyone else, you only saw
anyone
Mr.
else.
James?
No, I didn't see anyone else.
Perfect. I have no further questioning, Your Honour.
Okay, thank you. Can I just clarify one thing, please, Mr. Coupe? You said it was slippery, but not on that kind of ice. Can you just clarify what you mean by that?
Well,
Is there different? Is it like different slipperier leaves on the train tracks, or is it?
that kind of thing. Maybe it's something very. It was actually slippery, but not something that one would not avoid or one would not manage if you were to
Okay.
walk on such conditions.
Okay. Could you walk? So you're saying that you could walk on that road and not fear falling over,
No, not at all.
despite it being slippery.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
especially with the kind of shoes that Mr. James was wearing, I think nothing would have happened to him.
Okay, we haven't established what shoes he was wearing, but thank you very much. Okay, that concludes your defence. The prosecution's witnesses. Thank you. Yes, for the defence.
Yes, sir. I would like to call defense to the stand.
Thank you, Ms. Ladikabel. Thank you, Mr. James. You're already sworn in. You remain sworn in, and we can go immediately to questions.
Hi, Mr. Richard. How are you doing today? Can you tell the court what happened on the 10th of January, 2023?
On the 10th of January, we were about four, the twins, my mother-in-law, and I. So I was going to the library because there is this storytelling children about this, which I was doing as a volunteer something. So.
Okay. So how long have you lived in the neighborhood?
For so long, more than 6-7 years.
How has the experience been for you?
People in my neighborhood, they park badly, and most of the drivers are so reckless. I was even let's say victim that because my mother-in-law was hit by a car, and the driver was nowhere to be found, and that was what led her to being on a wheelchair since that time. So
was that on the same road?
Yeah, not quite long from that place, because you know there are a lot of the neighborhoods. That's what I mean.
All right. And so do they park on the pavement?
Yeah,
and
they
double
park.
yellow lines?
They park on the pavement, and even they park on the yellow line. Even on the pedestrian crossing, they park there. Even the worst thing was even in the middle of the night, they park carelessly, and it's so dangerous for the people.
So it's not been a nice experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what did you ever do about the situations?
Yeah, we've tried as much as possible to report these issues even to the local authorities, but it seems they don't really bother about it, and yeah.
So why would you report it to the
Because
police?
The pedestrians, we always have issues. Most of us that have children, they're pushing children. We don't have, most of the time they park on the pavement, and there's no way we could go on except. So it's most of the time it's always difficult for us. And the kind of speed that they drive, the drivers, the way they drive on the street is extremely dangerous. So
most people will call the police for a crime.
Yeah.
An offense. So was there any other reason you called the police?
Yeah, because we find out that people are not obeying the traffic rules.
Do you know any traffic rules in particular?
Yeah, like road traffic act, and I think that's the one I could easily remember now.
Okay. So what was the weather like that day?
It was so icy and so slippery.
So in your statement, you said that when you were on the way to the library with your grandmother and your grandkids in a pushchair. So how was the space? Was there enough space for you to pass through?
There's not enough space to pass through, but the only space that remained was so small that by my calculation, that I can just, pass through with the twins. But for my mother-in-law, it couldn't pass. So immediately she left. She has to go back. But I have to push. But while I was pushing, honestly, there's a little, which it can easily be erased. So so when I was pushing through, I discovered I scratched it, but it's not deep. It's just a kind of, let's say, stain, which most of the time you can erase it with something like diesel or petrol. It's just going to be wiped away. But I noticed in that car there's a scratch on that car which kind of accident, or maybe when somebody park wrongly. You know, sometimes when a driver wants to park, it could scratch. It's not the kind of scratch that maybe something could easily damage.
Also, you're saying the car was damaged before you passed
exactly. I saw it there.
Okay. So what's your pushchair made out of?
Something like it's plastic with kind of foam, and there might be something like iron inside, but it was like covered with kind of foam or something like rubber, something like insulation, so it can't actually destroy anything at all.
Okay. Was there any other way you could have passed apart from the pedestrian way with the pushchairs?
At that time, there's no other way. There's no extra, because the car was extremely packed on the pavement.
Also,
so
fully packed, not
fully packed. The only person that could watch would be only one single person. Try to manage, not someone with my condition, pushing my baby with something. I can't really go through that place. The only place that left for me was in between these two cars. So then I have to manage it, because this condition of the weather, it was icy. I can't risk my life going through the main road, so I can't really do it, because I can't risk the life of the children. And beside that, I carry my expensive laptop, and there's this lightning equipment we want to use there, which is really expensive. So I carry them as well. So for me to risk those things, and I think I could manage that place just to save the life of the kid and something that I've carried.
So you're stating that you couldn't pass the main road because it was dangerous?
It was dangerous.
Your children and the
exactly.
equipment you were
And
carrying.
based on my experience of how car hits my mother-in-law and they ran away. So all this kind of pantophobia, fear is always on my mind, so I can't just want to risk it again.
So you have like a mental state where you're afraid to pass the road because of incidents?
Because
Okay. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you describe how dangerous it would have been for you to pass the main road?
Extremely dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Extremely dangerous.
So what equipment were you actually carrying?
Yeah, my expensive laptop, the expensive lightning equipment, and with the twins that I'm carrying on on the bag. Also call it baby.
The pushchair.
Yeah, baby pushchair.
Okay. So, has any other person experienced all these blockages and obstructions?
I know, because I'm not the only one that has baby.
Pushchair.
Yeah. So, they may have the same problems, which is everybody knows, because they park on the red. On the yellow something. Even the pedestrian road, they park, because I don't know, maybe it's because of too much cars. They have to use that place. It's always like that. So,
and how does that make you feel?
Really bad, because they don't allow us to, because the pedestrian road was made for people like us. Yeah, but we can't enjoy it. Instead of them parking on the main road, they even take that one, infringe on our own right as well.
Okay, that'll be all, Mr. Answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed.
Mr. James, could you please describe your relationship with Mr. Lancer?
Yeah, Mr. Lancer is, he lives in our neighborhood. So
No past dealings with Mr. Lancer?
there is no past, but we
No
don't have
physical-
no correspondence, but
Yeah.
sometimes we greet each other. I greet a lot of people,
Yeah.
so it's part of them as well.
Could you describe your relationship with Mr. Coupe, please?
Yeah, I know Coupe as well, because living in environment, we are more or less like what I quote as family, so
Yeah.
we know ourselves.
So you don't believe that Mr. Lancer or Mr. Coupe were in conspiracy in any way to frame you for the damage?
But I know Mr. Coupe is someone that is so inquisitive in everything, even whatever that doesn't concern him, he looks around. So I know him for that, but I didn't take it personal.
So you know him for being inquisitive, but
Yeah,
you don't know him for being in conspiracy with Mr. Lancer to frame you?
Yeah, I don't think so.
In your witness statement, you expressed your dislike for the attitude of drivers around your area. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, the attitude is that it's not something, I don't know them one by one, but I know the way they park the car It's really, really bad, to be sincere. We need to be considerate, and some people are using that part, mostly the children who have their own scooters and everything, so they can't actually use. So these are the reasons why, for me, I feel it's really bad.
Can you please describe a bit more how you feel? Does it make you feel upset or angry in any way?
Not to disturb my emotion, but anytime I want to go out or seeing, like, I feel bad because I can't be able to. Most of the time, I have to first of all put my baby something outside, carry those children and put, because you can't put them together and put it there. It's always like that. So that is that moment, not as in being angry and go to my room and start thinking about it. No, but at the moment I want to use the road or going somewhere else, I feel there's a lot of disturbances and everything that these people are not considerate at all.
So was the gap Mr. Lancer left, was that safe in your opinion?
For my condition, it's not safe.
Not safe.
But if alone, maybe I want to go and buy alone, I could manage go where I want to go. But pushing my children, there's no way I could do that with my mother-in-law and everyone. So
just to confirm, on the day you had your children, you're saying the gap he left was unsafe? On the day you were carrying your children?
Exactly,
Yeah?
it's unsafe, yes.
Okay. So you said you made contact with the car. Could you please explain further what you meant by contact?
Yes, because the space was, it's not big enough, to be sincere, for my something, but I have to manage it because the road is icy and it's slippery, and for the sake of that children, which if car is coming, I could easily run if like me or something, but with the children, there's no way I could be trying to save myself and save the children and still save the things that I can. Okay. So I look at it as I could manage this one, and I try to manage it. But and I discovered that while I was trying to something, the foam, what's we call it, one of the something, I see the line there, and I felt it's so, and I look at it very well because I feel like something. But I discovered it's something that could easily be wiped away, and I feel the man will not mind something like that.
So you said you scraped past the G-Wagon. Yeah. So naturally, you were aware of some potential contact with the G-Wagon before you scraped past it. You were aware that you were going to make some contact because the gap he left was quite tight. Yeah, so you knew that you were going to make contact with the car because his gap was that tight and you couldn't fit through. Yeah?
As a normal human being, I know the place is not big enough, but it's opportunity for me, and it's a kind of thing I know this is the only way I could take. If there's another alternative, I will have,
But you knew the gap was not big enough?
Definitely.
Yeah. Am I also correct in stating your actions were obstructive, but you took them for the sake of your expensive lighting equipment and the pushchair you were handling at the time?
With the most important is the children.
Yeah. So you took those obstructive actions for your children and your lighting equipment?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mr. Lancer described the damage as deep gorges. So it must have been a pretty tight squeeze then, am I right? So Mr. Lancer describes the damage done to his car as deep gorges.
Yeah.
By my estimations, it must have been quite a tight squeeze if your actions resulted in deep gorges. Apparently deep gorges. So,
I told you in my statement that I knew and I saw that the car was already damaged before I went. It's not me that damaged the car, but the fact remains that I saw it. And even when I passed through the place and I saw that my thing touched the car, I wanted to write something on the paper to put it there, that something like this. But when I saw Mr. Tete coming around, and so I believe so, he must have as well passed the information across to him. Yeah. But he knew that the dent was easily to wiped away, but because maybe somebody has damaged his own car, so he's looking for an avenue to tie it on. Mr. Richard was the one doing all these kind of things. So that is the logic behind it.
So am I right in saying it was a tight squeeze?
Yeah,
for you to get past, it was a tight squeeze.
I don't know how the level of tight you are talking about, but for me, it's enough for me to go and I pass.
You with the pushchair it wasn't comfortable for you because you scratched the car. If you had not scratched the car, it would have been comfortable, right? If you have not made any contact with the car,
That means it's comfortable.
then it means it's comfortable, right?
Exactly.
But because you scratched the car, can I say that it was uncomfortable and it was a bit tight?
The worst crash now is someone with someone like me with my something I can't actually scratch. I can only say I brush. It's not something like scratch. Scratch is different from brush. You push something through, but when you scratch something, it's actually like you iron to iron. So this is not something like that. My this doesn't have any iron.
So bearing in mind your children were in the pushchair at the time of the incident, is it safe to say that it was only you at risk of falling in icy conditions because you normally strap your children in, right, into the pushchair?
Yeah, if because of the eyes, if I have to go with it, even if I fall down. But what of imagine if a car that even I have a lot of experience of the way the drivers are so careless in that place. So I can't possibly take the risk of those children because if car is coming, I could as well run. But what of those children? And there's no way I could be pushing at the same time meet up with the speed of the car that is speedily running on. So it wasn't intentional. I don't see it as something I didn't destroy it. It's not intentional.
But you were aware of the risk. So because you said that you scratched the car, so that means you were aware of some potential risk.
It's a risk to the car or risk to me?
Risk to the car. You said that you scratched the car.
I didn't potentially see. I didn't foresee the kind of risk.
You did not see that you would scratch the car, even though you've told me that.
It's after I push. It was when I discovered the thing happens. I didn't. If I knew it's going to damage the car, even there is no alternative for me.
But if
because
you knew that
the car already take the space already.
Yeah.
So how do you think I could?
Before you, so in regards to her questioning, you said that the gap was really tight. Yeah.
No, I say it's big enough. I mean, it's not big
It's
enough
not
for
big
me
enough for you to get past.
Exactly.
So with that
but
being
it's
said,
something, it's the place. I mean, it's the place is enough for me to go, but it's not as big as like pedestrian road where you can easily walk easily. So I have to manage it to get to my apartment.
So you were not aware of any risk. You passed through the gap thinking there would be no risk to the G-Wagon.
Yes, definitely.
You think there was risk or was not risk?
No risk.
No risk, yeah? I have accounts from Mr. Coupe and Mr. Lancer that say the roads are usually quiet. And you're saying to me that you were scared that the cars could potentially collide with yourself. I have on 2 accounts that the roads are usually quiet. Is that something you all agree on? Or do you still stand by the fact that you think the roads are really busy and dangerous?
I'm not capitalizing on whether the road is quiet or not. But I'm saying the way the driver runs, the road can be quiet in a single minute and another car. Even because of the quietness of a car, of a road, the driver has the opportunity to speed more because if it's something.
Am I correct in saying you would have only been on the road a couple of seconds just to get past the G-Wagon?
So when you have experience like me, you don't even want to take risk again.
So you
because a car knocked my mother-in-law and ran away, and the mother-in-law was is on the wheelchair, and I will not take a risk whether the road is no.
So you didn't go on the road based on a personal experience you had?
Yeah, I don't want to take risk, so I have to manage that place.
Sorry, James, we didn't hear an answer to the previous question. How long would it have taken you if you... I mean, you weren't prepared to go onto the road?
Because the road is slippery, it's icy, so I don't want to take risk.
It wasn't a consideration at all to go onto the road?
Yeah.
Okay, that's...
But do you agree that it would have only taken you a couple of seconds to get past the G-Wagon?
He said he wasn't prepared to do that. So
yes,
I think that's irrelevant.
So have you had any experience walking in icy conditions before?
Definitely.
You have had plenty of experience walking in icy conditions?
Yeah.
Thank you. No further questioning, Your Honour.
Okay.
But I will say that, Your Honour, the questions I asked were directly related to the recklessness test in RVG 2004.
I understand.
Yeah.
You can pick that up in your closing statement.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything in re-examination?
I have some re-examination questions. Did you believe that there was enough space for you to squeeze through with your pushchair and the kids?
That is enough for me based on the circumstances. So, yeah.
So when you passed through, and you made contact with the car. Did you do it on purpose?
No, it wasn't intentional. Even I have already passed before I discovered that there was a mark. And I went back to look at it and I discovered it wasn't.
But before you passed, you believed that there would have
The
been
place
enough
would be
space.
enough for me, exactly.
Okay. That's all. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Just one question from me, sorry, before I let you go. You said a number of times in my condition. What do you mean by your condition? That you simply had a wheelchair, a pushchair?
Yes, because
That you were
a
burdened?
car was in the past hit my mother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
So this experience is always, that's the experience I mean. And my condition was that I have 2 children on a baby push. So
Yes.
it's a kind of...
Just your personal circumstances.
Exactly, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. You can resume your seat in the dock. Okay, and finally.
I would like to call Mrs. Agrello to the stand.
Thank you. Mrs. Allegra Austin?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Are you okay? Do you need
Yes,
some
I
assistance?
Paces.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Yes, could you confirm your name, please?
Mrs. Allegro Austin.
Thank you. And your address?
I just live near my son-in-law.
Okay.
Yes,
we have this
BD.
as... Yeah, on Bank Street.
That's right. Yes,
Okay,
number
yep.
47.
We have that on record. Okay, and quickly the oath. I do, if you could repeat after me. I do solemnly,
I do solemnly,
sincerely and truly
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. You may sit down.
Thank you.
Hi, Mrs. Allegro.
Hello.
Please, could you tell the court what happened on the 10th of January?
Right. Well, on the 10th of January, it was a lovely day, but very, very, very cold. And I don't get out much, but my son-in-law and my daughter do look after me. And I knew Richard was going to take the children to read the stories at the library, and asked me if I wanted to go. So I said, "Oh yes, I'll be fine." Got wrapped up and in my my mobile scooter thing.
So how long have you known Richard?
Well, obviously ever since he started going out with my daughter, and they've been married. It's about 6-10 years now. Yeah.
So how do you describe Richard's character?
Oh, he's a lovely lad. I mean, he's got so much time for the children, and I couldn't really cope without him and my daughter Anglia. Yeah, they really look after me since my accident.
So will you describe him as a maniac or someone who's always angry?
No, not at all. To say, goes reads the stories at the library, and I mean, obviously the parking does get on top of both of us really, but it makes it difficult to get around in my condition.
So what does Richard do for you?
Sorry?
What does Richard do for you?
Oh, well, he's always coming round, checking up, seeing how I am, and as I say, making sure I get out. And as I say, we were having a jaunt off to the library, even though it was cold and frosty and a bit icy.
From your statement, you stated that you're in a wheelchair.
I am, yes.
So what happened? What was the situation like?
A few years ago, I was nearly a goner really. I was hit by a car, and I nearly died. But ever since then, I've been needing a wheelchair, and I've got a mobility scooter as well. Yeah.
Was that in the neighbourhood?
Yes, not far away.
Okay.
It was a hit and run that didn't stop, just cleared off.
So on your way there, you experienced an obstruction. Is it right to say that? On your way to the library, where you were going with Rachel?
That's right. We just got to the top of the cul-de-sac, and there it was, this great big hulk of a vehicle. Why people need these big cars, I don't know. It was sort of blocking the pavement, really. Partly on the road and partly on the pavement.
Yeah. So could Richard pass through with the pushchair?
Well, there was a gap between the car and the hedge, I'm not the best of drivers on my scooter, and that's a bit bigger, so I didn't think I'd get through. But it'd have been a squeeze, but it looked wide enough for Richard and the buggy. Yes.
So was the space enough for you to pass through?
No, I didn't. No, it was, and I couldn't get round because there's a steep curb, so I couldn't get, and I wouldn't have wanted to anywhere with the road being so icy.
So you didn't want to go on the main road because it was icy?
Well, and there was a big, drop on the curb, so I couldn't have got my scooter down easily.
So do you believe there was another alternative for Richard to push the kids past maybe another route?
Well, I mean, it's awkward with the buggy getting down curbs like me in the pushchair, but, well, you could have gone round, but I mean, as I say, it was icy, so, you wouldn't, if he'd have fallen over and then the pushchair had been stuck there, and I'm no help, am I?
So, what was Richard carrying, apart from the pushchair and that particular
Oh, he was laden down. He'd got his laptop and some lighting gear as well. It's expensive, a new laptop. Yeah.
So it's right to say he was carrying expensive
Yes, yeah.
products with him?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So you had to go back that day because you couldn't pass through?
I did. A bit tricky. I had to reverse and go, but I made it. Yes, I had to go back.
So how did that make you feel?
Well, obviously, I was looking forward to going out with Richard and the kids, and it's nice to have a trip to the library, get there nice and warm, see a few people.
Have you ever experienced any of these obstructions before, apart from that day?
Oh, there's always, you know what it's like these days. Nobody takes any notice of pedestrians. There's cars always parking, and the speed round that corner at the bottom of the cul-de-sac, they come round at a terrible speed, yes, yeah.
So what exactly was the pushchair made out of?
Well, it's obviously a double buggy for the twins, so there's the two of them in, and well, I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously, like a normal, it's a fairly modern thing, and they sit sort of side by side, bit of plastic, and obviously they've all got the blankets and the cosy toes on with it being so cold, so they've got that padding around to keep them warm.
Did you see anything on the G-Wagon when Richard was passing through?
G-Wagon?
The
big car,
big car.
Well, not really. I mean, obviously it was parked near the hedge, and I didn't go through. I had to try.
You were not close by then?
Sorry?
You were not close by the car?
Well, no, I was sort of behind Richard and the twins, yeah.
Okay, that'll be all.
Mr. Austin, Mr. James with his notoriously large pushchair fit through the gap. Why didn't you?
Well, obviously I've got my mobility scooter, and obviously that's got like the four wheels and the handles and the brakes.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a bit wide, and I'm not a right good steerer, yeah. So I didn't think I could fit through.
What was the main reason you turned back?
Well, because I couldn't fit through the gap, and I couldn't.
So in other words, it would have been unreasonable for you to squeeze through the gap.
Well, it was. Yeah. Well, I don't think I'd have got through. Well, even if I could have, as I say, I'm a bit of a dodgy driver, so I didn't.
So unreasonable, or
no, no. I mean, it can always be a bit of a struggle. There's always cars here, there, and everywhere.
Are you not a risk taker?
Sorry?
Are you not a risk taker?
Oh no, not anymore. Look what happened here.
You don't take risks?
No.
So it was unreasonable for you to squeeze through the gap. You would have rather just gone home.
Well, that's what I had to do. I
Yeah.
wanted to go, but I couldn't really get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said it was awkward to get the buggy down from the pavement. Am I correct?
Well, I guess it would have been.
Yeah.
I couldn't have got my scooter down, and it's always a bit tricky with buggies, isn't it, going up and down pavements.
So it's awkward but not dangerous. Am I right in assuming it's not dangerous? It's just awkward.
Well, it was a steep curb. I mean, obviously Richard, takes care with the kids, and they'd have been strapped in, but it was icy on the road as well, So, yeah, it would have been.
Did you go on the road that day?
Well, no, I sort of reversed back and had to go up the neighbour's drive and then turned back and went home.
So you didn't experience any struggle with ice that day? You just looked at the road and assumed it was icy?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, but it looked icy, yes, so, you know, you avoid it, don't you, especially, yeah.
Yep. So just to confirm, did you see any damage to the G-Wagon?
Well, I was behind Richard and the buggy, you know, as we were coming up to the vehicle, so I didn't really see.
So you didn't see any damage? You're not in a position to comment on that?
No, I'm not really, no.
Thank you. No further questioning, Your Honour.
Thank you very much. Anything in re-examination?
Yes, I have
please?
some re-examination
Madam
questions
Coburn, yeah.
for the witness. Would you say it would have been unsafe for Richard to pass the main road?
Well, yes, as I say, very difficult to get down, and it was icy, so, you know, and as I said, people come round the corner at the bottom at a speed, and you know, don't see until it's too late, and you know what can happen.
You said there was not enough space for you to pass through the car on the pedestrian way, but was there enough space for Richard to at least squeeze through the place compared to your wheelchair?
Yeah, well, yes, there would have been just about enough room, I guess, yeah.
For him. Okay, but not you.
No.
Okay, that'll be all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've nothing further. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Austin. You are free to go about your day. Thank you. So then our closing speeches, please. Yes, starting with prosecution, Mr. Ahmed.
So to conclude, I would like to guide you to the case of Morphetis v. Salmon, 1990. It was decided that something as little as a scratch on a car can constitute damage as it leads to remedial work and affects the value of the car. So very similar to our case when we're talking about scratches. This is similar to our case and the damage done by Mr. James. Mr. James affects the overall value of the G-Wagon. It's evident that from my questioning that Mr. James was aware of the risks and understands his actions of scraping past the G-Wagon were unreasonable. Lastly, Section 1 of the Criminal Damage Act 1971 states you are guilty of a criminal offence if, without a lawful excuse, damage property belonging to another, intentionally or recklessly. I believe that Mr. James was reckless in his actions and was completely aware of the risks associated with his behaviour, which resulted to damage on the vehicle. Due to Mr. James's age, it's evident that he has had plenty of experience walking in winter conditions and fully understands how to take safety measures when walking on ice, such as walking slowly to avoid stumbling. Furthermore, we have heard from numerous witnesses that say the roads are usually quiet, which means Mr. James would not have been in any sort of danger for the few seconds it takes to walk around the car. The reason for him not going onto the road was based more on his personal experience. Thank you, Your Honour.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Your Honour, and the member of the jury, on behalf of the defendant, Mr. Richard, I would like to establish the fact that Section 1 sub 1 of the Criminal Damage Act of 1971 states that a person is said to have committed committed the offence of criminal damage if such person does not have any lawful excuse in that regard. I would like to state to the court that Mr. Richard is covered by Section 5 sub 2 A and B of the Criminal Damage Act from being stated to be guilty for the crime in question based on these two lawful excuses. Mr. Richard and his witnesses have duly established this in their testimonies. Mr. Richard honestly believed that Mr. Lancer would have consented to the little scratch caused on the car in the circumstances, and this is due to the fact that the car was already damaged before Mr. Richard passed the car, as he said in his testimony. I also stated to the court that Mr. Richard, being aware of that the act of Mrs. Lancer parking on the pavements, which he knew was a crime, reported same to the police a number of times and nothing had been done about it. I also stated to the court that Mr. Richard could not have passed the main road with his kids and all the expensive equipment that he was carrying, in regards to the fact that it would have been unsafe for him to pass the main road because the weather was cold and the roads were icy. And this was a risk that at risk of his equipment being damaged. So he had no other choice but to pass the pavements. which the law provided for both pedestrians and any other luggages or chairs they were carrying or pushing to pass through. I would like to put to the court that Rule 244 and 242 of the Highway Code makes it an offense for anyone to park partially or wholly on the pavements on the road, except there's a law that permits it. And this is actually what Ms. Lancer and the others have done. And I also like to point to the court that just because everyone does a particular act does not make it right, and ignorance of the law is not an excuse. I also want to state to the court that according to the rule in R and Hunt, it was stated that damage caused by the defendant must be objective, capable of protecting the property. And also in the case of R and Baker and Willings, it was stated that the defendant must act to protect the property. And it is established in this case via Mr. Richard and Ms. Allegro's testimonies that Mr. Richard had to protect the equipment which he was carrying, and also had to protect his kids. And he also believed that Ms. Lancer had consented to the little scratch that would have been done on the car due to the fact that the car was already damaged before he passed. I also want to point to the court that the prosecution has actually not in fact proved this case beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. Richard committed this crime. And I would like to plead to the court to discharge and acquit Mr. Richard for the crime of criminal damage. With this, Your Honor, this is the end of my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the purposes of the jury, I'll just sum up the things that we've heard and just to give you direction on what you need to decide. The car has been damaged. It's not clear who's caused that damage. We have heard evidence that the car is indeed damaged. The prosecution's case is that it was damaged by Mr. James, who said that he did scrape past it, he did make contact with the vehicle, but that any damage could be brushed off or rubbed out. He used the word dent as well as used the word scrape. Make of that what you will. It's for the jury to determine that, whether that amounts to the damage in itself. Secondly, there's two things that you heard. You have to determine this. Either that he intentionally caused that damage, if you determine that the damage was caused by Mr. James, or that it was foreseen and then he went ahead with the risk of causing that damage by going past the vehicle. That's the prosecution case, and you have to determine that on the basis of whether or not it was done intentionally or recklessly, as pointed out clearly by the prosecution. In response to this, the defence says that this has not been proved, that the damage has not been proved beyond reasonable doubt, that it has been caused by Mr. James. And in any case, if it were, then a lawful excuse may apply. The lawful excuses can be found in the Criminal Damage Act, which says that he caused that the damage was caused in order to protect other property. That other property not being, because the Criminal Damage Act itself does not protect the human life of himself or the children, but in fact the property, right, that he was carrying, that namely being an expensive laptop and some lighting equipment. So it, again, is for the jury to determine whether or not that lawful excuse should apply in this situation. Not that there was any absolute danger of going out into the road, but that the road was icy, he was not prepared to go out onto the road, and was worried about the potential driving or cars coming quickly around the corner when he would be stranded on an icy road, which could mean that the lawful excuse could apply. So we are not to read out a verdict. The matter is to be decided by the jury. That's those watching at home. And we, await your verdict. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honour. Just to add that our voting will open this evening. The verdict is the public are invited to vote for their best candidate over the last 3 days of the trial. We thank you for joining us and we wish the candidates all the best. Voting will be open from this evening and will close on Sunday, the 26th of March, 2023. Thank you.